Hello, welcome to another Purple Insider Extra. Matthew Collar here, along with Sam Ekstrom. Make sure that you are checking out the Purple Insider podcast. Go to wherever you get your podcasts, type in Purple Insider, it'll pop right up, and read our written work, purpleinsider.substack.com. And one more thing, remember to hit that subscribe button below. Sam, the Vikings signed Stephen Weatherly back. Give me your reaction.
It's fine. I think every team in sports has a tendency to be a little bit too country club. They like their own guys. They like who they're familiar with. And we saw this with Shamar Stephen. He was gone for a year. They brought him back. We saw it with Tom Johnson. He was gone for a couple months. They brought him back. Everson Griffin, there have been rumors that he'd be interested in returning, and fans are all about it. And who knows if the Vikings are. But this is, again, a player that's very familiar with the Vikings, and that is beneficial. I don't want to overlook that. That being said, I'm doing the math here. So you've got Danielle Hunter coming back. You've got probably a Fadio Denebo coming back. It's a pretty cheap tender. Don't know for sure, but let's say he does. DJ Wanham is, I think, your probably prize prospect right now if you have one. So if Weatherly's in the mix too, that's 4 defensive ends. I mean, are you done? Is that your move at defensive end? Does this preclude them from drafting a defensive end who could have a much higher ceiling? Because I think Stephen Weatherly is purely a deep rotational pass rusher. I think of the 4 that I listed, I think he's number 4. He was not good in Carolina. In the 9 games he played in a bigger role there, like between 30 and 40, sometimes 50 snaps a game. He was not impactful. DJ Wanham had a better pressure rate last year than Stephen Weatherly. DJ Wanham had a better run stop rate than Stephen Weatherly. He had some good moments in 2018 when he filled in for Everson Griffin, but on the whole, I think he kind of is what his draft status says. He's a 7th round pick who's made a nice career for himself. I don't think this is a game-changing signing.
I agree that it's not a game changer, but I also think this is exactly the type of signing that the Vikings need. They need guys that are 1 year, $2.5 million deals for players that they know are at least NFL caliber and can hold down NFL roles. I think what we saw last year on the defensive line was a lot of guys getting their first chance and showing us they can't really be even an average contributor in their role. And what we've seen from Stephen Weatherly before in Minnesota and playing under Mike Zimmer and Andre Patterson was that he could be that. In 2018, when he was asked to fill in for Everson Griffin for a number of games, I think 5 games, he came away with a pretty strong performance. Now, would you want that over 16 games of him playing 50 to 60 snaps? Probably not. But in terms of a rotational role where he could even come in and pass rush over the guard, I think he was fairly effective in doing that in Minnesota. And for the price, it's right. Now, the question is, if Everson Griffin isn't there, like he wasn't last year, and maybe even Danielle Hunter is not there, we'll see what happens with his situation. Then if you're asking too much of Stephen Weatherly, you'll probably get similar results to what they had in Carolina. I do not dislike the idea, though, with their current cap situation of having multiple players competing for that spot, competing for snaps, and then seeing how it works out. But I don't think this precludes them from drafting a defensive end in the first round, and I don't think it precludes them from signing anybody else if they make bigger moves to create cap space.
Yeah, I hope not. I wrote about Vinny Curry in one of my free agent articles, 32 years old, played for $1 million last year. He's been a top 10 pass rushing productivity type of player the last 2 years. Incredibly cheap, ton of experience. The Vikings are paying Stephen Weatherly $2.5 million in large part because he's just younger. Like, he does have more upside than a veteran, but too often I think the Vikings overlook sort of players on the older side because they're afraid that they're hitting a cliff. They're afraid that they're not going to capitalize on their best years. And sometimes you have to vary from that. And they could have had a player with more of a proven track record in Curry, and I guess they could still sign him technically, than Weatherly for, I think, half the price. And I would like to see the Vikings maybe go outside of the bubble. We know Stephen Weatherly. Let's try something else. I get that Andre Patterson has a particular way of doing things, and Stephen Weatherly understands that. He has the physical archetype that they're looking for. I guess I would have just liked to see them be a little more creative here. Maybe this is a home run signing, and I'll have my foot in my mouth in a couple months. But as of this moment, I don't think it's like a jaw-dropping move.
No, not a jaw-dropping move, and I think that that's going to be free agency for the Vikings. And you mentioned someone like Vinny Curry. I would be all for bringing in 2 more Vinny Currys for defensive ends. I think they need to take the mass approach here, where you're going to have a lot of defensive linemen who come in, and it's sort of best man gets the job, and we go from there. Best man gets the snaps. If Stephen Weatherly isn't as effective as he once was, then he won't play as much, and you only spent $2.5 million on him. That's the key to the move for me, and why I like it is because he does have the familiarity. He has proven that he can get a couple of sacks, get a number of pressures when he's in a situational type role. But if it doesn't work out, it's not like you threw big money at somebody and it failed. And you can also look to guys like Vinny Curry, and I agree that they have flat out ignored some players in the free agent market, where I think that if you just even used the Pro Football Focus pressure numbers, you could have spotted this guy might be pretty effective. And that goes for offensive and defensive line. So they shouldn't ignore those guys again. They should use their money to spread it out through the roster and get solid role players. So for that reason, I am for the Stephen Weatherly move.
I will say this, Stephen Weatherly, one of the coolest guys in the Vikings locker room. I really hope that we're back in the locker room this year so we can have more conversations, because he's great. Super, super smart and really fun. Like even off the record, he's really fun, just talking about random stuff, books he's read, how he's investing in Bitcoin. Love the guy, Stephen Weatherly. So I am excited for that.
And he's a big chess player too. So those of you who watch,
he's kind of a nerd.
Gambit,
let's be honest.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, in a good way. So this is a Purple Insider Extra. If you want to hear entire podcasts of Sam and I and many more guests talking, go to wherever you get your podcasts, type in Purple Insider, read our written work, purpleinsider.substack.com, and we will catch you on the next Purple Insider.